If you are a self-confessed perfectionist and you are super, super hard on yourself to achieve and get great results, and you just really push yourself to do great things, then this video is for you. Being a perfectionist and being really hard on yourself is not necessarily a healthy thing. And it can really actually hold you back from building a great business in this industry of what I'm here to sort of talk about and represent. So, welcome to a new week. Those of you that are newer to me, it's Helen Martin. I'm your online crew captain. I'm here to help our online crew community of home-based business owners, direct sellers, social sellers, network marketers to build an amazing business online. So we talk about modern social media systems and strategies and duplication to build, what it is that you want to build online. But my very first video of the week is something to do with personal development and personal growth, because I don't care how many super slick social media strategies you learn, that's not what is going to make you successful. You are. The way that you think, the way that you move, the way that you build on social media, the content that you put out, the conversations that you have, your motivation, your belief, your self-esteem, your confidence, that is what's going to build you an amazing business. So at the beginning of every week, I talk about something along these lines to help you sort of think about the person that you are and how you can sort of strive to be a better version of yourself to get where it is that you want to go. Does that make sense? So who here watching live or catching the replay, you can comment later as well, sort of deems themselves to be a bit of a perfectionist. There are a lot of people out there that are really high achievers, and it's not necessary. It's good to be a high achiever because it can give you will and drive and determination. But when you are like a pretty bad perfectionist and you are so hard on yourself to achieve things, it can actually work in really negative ways, like against you. So I just want to share a discussion around this with you, because if you can resonate with this, if you are like what you consider to be a perfectionist and somebody who puts a lot of pressure on themselves, it's really important to understand why you might do this and sort of how to think about it, because it can actually, although it's good to be a high achiever and want to do great things, it can actually really hold you back in a number of ways. Okay, so let's have a chat about that. Dean, I'm talking to you, are you? I'm actually looking in the mirror, when I chatted about this, because that's me. I've actually had employees, back when I was in the corporate world, that felt like they've told me after the fact that they just felt that nothing was really ever good enough for me as a boss. Back then, when I was really, really picky and wasn't really aware of a lot of things or how I sort of operated, that I was they just felt that nothing was ever good enough for me. And that's not really a good place to sort of be as a boss. So I've learned a lot of lessons around this over the years about, how to deal with other people, how to work with a team, and also recognize myself, some of the pressure that I put on myself that I don't need to. So it is important for you to understand, if you are somebody that, puts a lot of pressure on yourself and you know that you're a perfectionist, to kind of understand a little bit, about it. Hey, Debbie, how are you? So firstly, being a perfectionist and striving for, you just put so much pressure on yourself. You're not born with that. So you might think that you are. You might think that, oh, this is just me. This is just who I am. It's not the case at all. There's something that's happened when you were growing up, whether it's from a parent, a teacher, a mentor, friends, how you've been treated, how you've grown up in a way, the environment that you grew up, the household that you grew up, all that kind of stuff. That's what creates an element of sort of perfection and pressure that you put on yourself. Something has happened in your world to make you be this way. So when we strive for that perfection, there's a little voice in our head telling us that we need to do more. telling us that we need to, if we're going to do something, we have to do it to 150%. And, are you that person that will, if you're going to put something out there on social media, or you're going to write something, or you're going to do something, it has to be perfect. You put that kind of pressure on yourself. So what's important to understand is that's not normal. It's not something you're born with. There's something in you that is trying to prove to someone something that you might not even be aware of, that it has to be to that standard. So for some people, it'll be some people trying to constantly proving themselves to others. You're looking for validation in achievements rather than really valuing your own self-worth. When you have high self-worth, you don't really care that much. You value yourself. I mean, you do care. Don't take that the wrong way. But when you have huge self-worth, then you don't really care what other people think. You don't necessarily strive for those levels of perfection, because you just do what makes you happy. You just go for it no matter what the outcome is. You don't put those kind of expectations on yourself. So I don't know if something resonates with you that you can think about sort of off the top of your head. Like, did a parent tell you that you would never amount to something? Did a teacher put you down? Did you get bullied as a kid at school? Did you get abandoned in some way? Is there grief in your life? Like, are you trying to prove something? Like, have you always sort of felt like you've been left alone, or, nothing is ever good enough, or you're always trying to prove yourself, your self-worth? So people, unfortunately, and as I said, I look myself in the mirror when I have this conversation. People that are really high achievers and perfectionists tend to have, even if they recognize it or not, a lower level of self-worth and self-esteem, even if they're not aware of it. You might not think that you do, but there's something that's happened in your world that makes you be that perfectionist. Am I making sense to those of you that can resonate with this? So just kind of think about that. The thing to understand about it is to recognize all of this, because it's not healthy for a number of reasons, which I'll get to in a second. And unless you recognize it and change it, it'll always be there, and it'll always hold you back in certain ways. And that's why I share these videos. This isn't teaching you the latest social media trend to build your business online. But unless you truly understand this kind of stuff that I talk about at the beginning of the week, there'll be things that you do that you don't understand the reason why you do it, and it's always going to hold you back from building amazing business. Okay, so it is important to understand, this kind of stuff. The downfall with perfectionism, and the downfall of being such a high achiever, is that you will end up overthinking things. You'll end up holding yourself back from doing things because you're waiting for everything to be perfect. You're waiting for the perfect time to do something. You're waiting for all your ducks to be in a row before you do something. You're waiting to learn all you need to learn before you do the live video, or before you go and conquer a reel, or before you go and do email marketing, or before you go and do all the social media stuff. You'll actually hold yourself back from moving forward faster because you're waiting for everything to be perfect. So it's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, it's good to have some level of, obviously, pride and professionalism and achievement in your work, but not to the point where you're such a perfectionist that you're super picky, that it holds you back, that you're not doing the things in the business that you need to do because you're just waiting for everything to be perfect, or you're waiting to know all the steps, or you're waiting to, for everything to be, amazing before you go and do the do. Now, when we build a business online on social media, we've got to really stop caring what people think. We've just got to go out there and do it. We've got to stop overthinking our content, stop overthinking messages, just be more of ourselves, put ourselves out there, let the walls down. And that doesn't gel well with people that are perfectionists. Can you relate to that? So perfectionists and building a business on social media aren't necessarily the best combination. Okay. But here's the other thing that comes with being a perfectionist and a really, really high achiever, is there's things like increased anxiety and stress because the amount of pressure that you put on yourself and you don't really need to. Some of it, like people that are perfectionists, and I do this to myself, like I own this. I own being a perfectionist myself. Well, let's say a recovering perfectionist. I'm nowhere near as bad as I used to be because, I recognize a lot of things that I'm talking about to you today. But being a perfectionist just puts a lot of anxiety and stress on yourself because you're wanting everything to be perfect, or you're wanting to understand it all before you go and mess it up. Like the best thing to do on social media is just get out there and do it and mess it up and learn. And that's how you grow. It's actually doing the do. Perfectionist wants everything, all the things in place, and it frustrates you when it doesn't. And you want to know how to do everything, and you hold yourself back from doing things because you want everything to be good. And if it's not good enough, then you just don't do it, and it just ends up holding you back. So perfectionists have a much higher level of stress and anxiety. You actually have less productivity than somebody that just, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. We'll just go out there and try it and see what happens. Every failure is a lesson. It's not anything bad. It's just a lesson. Like the way we sort of perceive it and interpret it is quite different to somebody that just, doesn't care that much. It's almost a blessing to not care that much, if that kind of makes sense. But you tend to be less productive if you're a perfectionist, which is not good when you're building a business online. It can actually impact your relationships. So your relationships within the household, your loved ones, prospects, your audience. Like if you strive for perfection and everything has to be, wonderful. And, I find a lot of people, even in my team, it will hold them back from having a normal conversation with prospect in a messenger, or they'll leave somebody hanging for way too long because they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to say the wrong thing. What if I say the wrong thing and I scare them off? So there's been so long and so much stress overthinking what they're going to say to a prospect that they leave the prospect too long because they're thinking, and then the prospect's gone. Like being a perfectionist and all that overthinking, needing everything to be perfect and saying the perfect thing, that's not real life. If you have a voice and you're like a human, you know how to talk to people. If I was standing next to you, in a restaurant or a cafe or somewhere, you would try to find something to say to me and talk to me like a normal human being. Why can't people do that in Messenger? That they completely overthink it and freeze. So not only are you causing high levels of stress, not only are you being, less productive, you're actually kind of impairing and infringing on relationships. And that can actually be a result of, your relationships with husbands and wives and kids and stuff like that. If your expectations are so high and people don't meet that, you can actually indirectly end up with kind of human relationships within your own sort of family. Low self-esteem is something that I mentioned before as well. People that are really, really high achievers and perfectionists generally, as a general rule, have some kind of low self-esteem for some reason. And that's where I said it might come from something that you don't even understand, you don't even recognize. It could be a parent put you down, you got bullied at school, a mentor of yours put you down. You suffered something as a child, whether it was abuse or grief or something like that. So you're just trying to prove to the world something, and that something is never enough. You're always striving for something more, and that something is just never enough, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So self-worth might be something that you need to sort of work on. Burnout is another thing that perfectionists and really, really high achievers suffer with, because nothing is ever enough, and you're always trying to do more, and you're always trying to chase more. You get here and then you're going to chase there, or you're trying to make everything perfect that you burn yourself out in the process, rather than just doing the do, going with the flow and not caring what people think. Like people that are perfectionists are much harder on themselves, and they burn out a lot quicker. Because they need everything to be perfect. So that's not a positive thing either. Missed opportunities is another one. So people that are perfectionists will wait. They'll wait until everything's perfect, until they go and do something, buy something, enter a business like this, talk about it on social media, do a reel, do a TikTok, do a live video. They're just waiting, for everything to be perfect before they go move forward. And that just absolutely means, missed opportunities in this, business space. And the last one that can be like a downfall for people that are perfectionists, and really, really high achievers, is the physical and mental stress that goes with all of those things I've just mentioned. You can put yourself under a lot of undue stress, and that can end up, obviously, mental and physical. When we've got either of those, it manifests kind of physically. So it's not necessarily a healthy thing. So as I said before, it's not bad to strive for, to have a level of professionalism and have high, standards. It is important to recognize the difference between like perfectionism and striving for perfectionism, and how it's actually like letting you down. Particularly in this industry where you're an entrepreneur and you're your own boss, there's a lot on your shoulders. You don't have a boss with a job description that's paying you every week that you need to turn up and, you know what you're doing every day. Gosh, do you know what you're doing every day in this world, in this industry? Like, it's tough sometimes. And so we've got to be motivated. But being a perfectionist is only going to hold you back from doing a lot of the things that you need to do online. Does this resonate with any of you listening to this, or catching the replay later? Just put resonate in the comments if you can kind of relate to some of the things that I'm sharing with you. So, and I'll get back to the comments in a moment. So I just want to give you some things to think about if this is you. So what are some of the things that you can do? Number one, learn to talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. Like if a friend came to you with a problem, if a friend was holding themselves back, if a friend was stopping themselves having a conversation in Messenger with a prospect because they were overthinking it, if a friend wasn't doing a live video because they were too scared to, if a friend wasn't pushing the buttons and doing a reel because they were too scared to, what would you say to them? So if you can treat yourself more like that you would treat a friend, you'll be far better off. We are cruel to ourselves. Are we not? Like that little voice in our head that tells us that we're not good enough, or we're, don't do that. You don't know what you're doing, or what would somebody think, or, you may look like an idiot. Like that little voice in our head can be your worst enemy. So if you sort of think to yourself like, okay, if this was a friend going through this, what advice would I give to them, and treated yourself that way, then you'd probably be far better off. So that's one thing to think about. Second thing to think about with perfectionists and people that like have really, really high standards is chunk down your goals, because you're thinking up here. And when sometimes your expectations are up there, and I've done it myself, I've done it just recently, like my expectations of myself in a new company and how quickly I could achieve, because I've done it before. Like my expectations was, I'll just do it again. And, like the pressure that I was putting on myself, it's just like, relax, woman. Relax. So, setting realistic goals and chunking down those goals. So instead of setting the standard up here, which perfectionists will do, is just set smaller goals and chunk them down a little bit. So, this is what I'm going to do this week, and achieve it. Because perfectionists can end up letting themselves down a lot because you set these unrealistic goals. And if you don't achieve them, then you're really, really hard on yourself. So chunk down the goals into reasonable timeframes and achieve them, because progress is better than perfection. Is it not? Progress is better than perfection every time. So that's something to think about. Third thing is to challenge your own negative thoughts. You have to recognize them. And that's why I talk about this kind of stuff at the beginning of every week, is to help you recognize things that you don't even see. Help you think about things that you've never thought about before. So when that little voice is coming in and, telling you certain things, whether you're good enough or not good enough, or why you can't do the reel, or why you can't do the live video, or why you can't do the talk to a prospect in Messenger, or, whatever it is that you're holding back, is that you actually listen to the little voice in your head and you challenge that little voice and go, okay, thank you for protecting me, brain, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to fail forward. I'm going to get this done. The only way I'm going to learn is if I go and do it and mess up. Okay, so you've got to challenge your own little voice in your head. And the only way you can do that is actually to listen to something like this and have a higher level of awareness, because you are run 80% by your subconscious. Do you realize that? There are things that you do that you don't even understand why you do them. And that's because you're run by your subconscious. Most of our life is kind of dictated by the time we're 7. Those younger years in our life will make the difference between somebody who just lives life to the fullest and doesn't care what people think, to somebody being an over perfectionist who's insecure and low self-worth, and their whole life plays out like this. So it's important to kind of be aware of these kind of things so you can change them if you're not happy with them. Okay. um, who's aware that they have habits around this that they need to change? Just put the word change in the comments if there's things that I'm sharing with you that you would like to change a little bit about yourself, like to let those walls down and be more confident without being worried about being a perfectionist. Like, I'd just be intrigued to know where you sit with that. So challenging your negative thoughts. And one thing that I often say around these kind of things, when something goes wrong or it's not up to your standard, is and like, write this down and remember it. And I constantly ask myself this when things are going right and wrong, is what do I need to learn from this? So if I'm being challenged majorly, and that could just be my expectations, and I need to manage my expectations, but I always ask myself, what do I need to learn from this? And it's usually something I need to learn about myself, not what's happening out there. No one else can upset you if you let them, unless you let them. No one else can treat you in a certain way, and you be affected by that, unless you let it. Like, you are more in control of what you think, your relationships, your partners, your husbands, your wives, your kids, your grandkids, whatever. No one can upset you unless you let them. So you are in so much more control of your thoughts and, things like, your levels of perfectionism and expectations, etc. You're more in control than you think. So you've got to challenge your own thoughts and go, okay, what do I need to learn from this? And more so, what do you need to learn about yourself in that? What do you need to change? You can't control other people. You can't control circumstances. You can't control your environment sometimes, but you can absolutely control the way you think and the way you handle certain situations. And sometimes we handle situations really well, and sometimes we handle situations really poorly because we let people affect us. But you can only let people affect you if you let it affect you. Like, you're in more control of that than what you think. Okay. Practicing mindfulness, like just calming the farm. Are you like always on the go? You're like push, 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 push. It makes you uncomfortable to sit down on the lounge and relax. Like, if you are push, 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 you might be a high achiever, high levels of perfectionist. You've got to practice some mindfulness, like breathing, walking, exercise, reading, journaling, all those kind of things that can help as well. Okay. And the last couple of things, obviously, I mentioned this before, focus on progress, not perfection. You'll be far better off when you do that. So just, it sounds wrong for me to say lower your standards. I don't want to say lower your standards, but you know what I mean around this whole context of this conversation, is focus on progress, not the perfection side of it. Okay. And, worst case scenario, not that this is bad, if you are like out of control perfectionist, and go and talk to somebody about it, like share the burden, like talk to a friend, talk to a mentor, talk to a colleague, talk to a professional if you need to. But unless you kind of recognize this, if this is your pattern, it will stay with you the rest of your life unless you make changes, like I'm mentioning in this video. Because it's just, we are 80% run by our subconscious. So there's things that you do that you want to change. You have to actively go and do something about that. And that might mean talking about it to somebody, opening up about it. Okay. Does that all make sense? Just want to check in on a couple of comments here. Beth, letting go of the perfection this week as I tackle reels. Go, Beth. Yeah, I like the technology side of building on social media is where perfection can come in sometimes, and you don't know where to put the text or the buttons or the music or the weather, and it frustrates the crap out of you when sometimes people stop. Like it's just failing forward and putting things out there that are not perfect, but at least you're getting them out there. It's the consistency of what you do on social media in this kind of business that'll help you get better. Now, if your perfectionism is so high, I'm not just talking to you here, Beth. If somebody's perfectionism is so high and you won't do a reel or you won't do a live video because they're not perfect, how are you ever going to learn? Like you have to do it badly first before you can actually get really good at something. It's like riding a bike as a kid. You know, how many times did you fall off your bike and get back up and keep going? Like kids don't fall off a bike and go, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I give up. Like you got to get back on the bike. You got to learn, get back on the bike. Carly, I've thought about this as I'm guilty of this too. I think it's fear of criticism, and that's very normal. And this is not to not normalize like perfectionism and being a high achiever. It's very, very normal. I just encourage you to listen to everything that I've shared about this topic on this video and take little pieces out of it to help you grow through it if you are unnecessarily really hard on yourself or you unnecessarily hold yourself back and put a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on yourself to be perfect, especially when it comes to building a business on social media. It won't serve you well. So if there's anything that I've said in this video that can help you just kind of think about that a little bit differently, that would be a good thing. Interesting, Dean. Many high achievers are also firstborn children. It's actually the opposite with my sister and I, although she used to be, but could well be. I think we're our own worst critics, Beth. People don't think about us as much as people don't think about as much as we think about us. And this is something that I say in my video challenges all the time, and social media in general. We waste so much time holding ourselves back, trying to be perfect, because we worry about what other people think. Like you don't want to put a reel out there if it's all over the place and it's not all put together, or you don't want to do a live video because the worry about what other people are going to think or going to say. People are not thinking that much about you. They're really not. Because like you're thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. And that person that's thinking about people thinking about them, that person's thinking about themselves thinking about them. Did you follow that? So people aren't that, this is going to sound really weird, but people aren't that invested in you to worry that much about you or lay awake at night worried about whether your reel was perfect or not, whether your live video was good or not. They don't care that much about you. So why should you put so much emphasis on what you put out there on social media? Like it's all in your own head. Okay. Donna, I'm just learning to let go of the need to feel in control of things. I thought this was me being a perfectionist, but more so about letting go and being able to trust. Eye-opening and heart-opening. A great learning curve to go through, Donna, and I'm sure you're going to come out better person on the other side of that. Debbie, I used to do this, now say stuff, just do it. That's the better way to be. Rebecca, that's me. You can relate. Julie, you're talking to me. Faye, sometimes overshare. It's like a chapter in a book. And it depends, Faye. When you say overshare, that's you just worrying about what you've shared with other people. Like if you feel like you want to share, and don't worry about if it's an overshare. Like that's just you worrying about what other people think. So if you feel comfortable with what you've shared, don't worry about what other people think to think it's an overshare. Okay? You might be surprised. People just want the real, genuine, authentic you, whoever you are, good, bad, indifferent, all your flaws, you're good, you're bad. They like people are intrigued by people, just generally. So I would question if you're oversharing, Faye. You're probably doing much better than you thought. So there's a lot of people resonating here. Change, and thank you for being brave enough to say that there's some things that you want to change. So well done, Dean. Well done, Gina. Well done, Donna. Beth, learning to change. Awesome. Okay, I've talked long enough about this. I really hope there's something in this video that I've shared with you that will just make you think about this a little bit deeply. Because if you are you are a perfectionist and you overthink, you are putting undue stress on yourself that you don't need to. So it can get a little bit easier, and particularly on social media, we want to like let those walls down and just learn to share without overthinking everything and being that perfectionist. So you as an individual will be lighter, if you like, and your journey on social media will be easier if you can just start to let some of these walls of perfection and, high achieving down. It doesn't mean you don't care about what you do or what you put out there or how you build your business. Of course you do. We're all going to have that. It's just sometimes we don't need to put as much pressure on ourselves. Okay. And just something to think about. As I said, I look in the mirror when I say this. Really high achievers and those that are massive perfectionists, there's some kind of self-worth and self-value that needs working on. Otherwise, you wouldn't care that much. Okay, so there's something to think about on a personal level with all of this as well, as to, what we need to work on as individuals that, comes from our past ultimately. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if it was helpful. Just put the word helpful. Would love to know if that's been, of some kind of benefit to you. And I look forward to seeing you guys in my next live video for this week, which we'll get back to business. We'll get back to social media. I've got some great training for you this week. So I'll see you on the next video. If you're trying to keep up with all my latest videos, just go to helenmartinonline.com. We're uploading on the website my last 3 latest videos, and we rotate that every time I do a public video here. So that's where you can keep up to date with everything that I'm doing and I've got coming up. Okay, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.